Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dear Sports with me, Faith Lynch. I am so excited about today's interview. We have Sophia Young-Malcolm in the office today. She is a two-time All-American and 2005 NCAA national champion during her time at Baylor University. At the time of her selection, she was Baylor's highest ever draft pick in the WNBA. She was fourth overall for the selection of the San Antonio Silver Stars in 2006, and she is currently the assistant athletic director for player development of the women's basketball team. Sophia, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course, yeah. I'm so pumped. Ever since you got on staff, I was like, I want to talk to her. She seems so cool.
Oh, my. That is an honor, so thank you.
Of course, yes. So can you just kind of go ahead and tell us, like, what you're doing for Baylor currently, what you're doing for the program?
Yeah, so player development, that's kind of a broad role. Because there is so many variety of things that you can be doing with it. But me particularly, I do work with the players to get them prepared for life after basketball is over. Yeah. You know that little 3 years, 4 years, you think that your life is all within that time frame, that point is going to end. And so just trying to get them ready with even just some thoughts. Hey, have you considered this? What mentors do you need? You know, what people can I connect you with? So that way, whenever the 4 years is over and you realize, like, I'm about to graduate and I don't know what I want to do, right? So those type of questions, which are scary, you know, when you graduate, you think, all right, do I want to go back home? Do I want to go somewhere else? Do I start working? Do I want to continue playing? You know, whether it's, do I find an agent? Am I good enough to go overseas? All of these different questions. And so I try to be there to answer those questions and to help in any way that I can. And also for me, my role in particular is like the team chaplain as well. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. Like the player development role is broad and it just based on what the team specifically needs.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity this week to go and speak on an athlete panel, and one of the questions that somebody asked was, do you feel underprepared for post-athletic life, or do you feel prepared enough to get internships and interviews? And I was like, honestly, by myself, no. But through Baylor Athletics, yes, because we have the resources, and there's people like you to help guide us and make those decisions. So you play a very crucial part in our athlete experience because it can be a lot. It can be very overwhelming.
Yeah. And you know what Baylor's doing with SACE? It's just one of those things. In the years past, there wasn't anything like this, you know? So we did have athletes leaving and not sure what they were going to do and feeling stuck, go home, that almost taking a year to try to figure out, all right, now what? So I think Baylor came up with Baylor Built for this specific reason. So that way athletes are not stuck and lost and trying to figure out, I don't know how to do an interview, right? I know how to run or I know how to compete, but I don't know how to do an interview. So kudos to Baylor Athletics for being so forward thinking and to get our athletes prepared.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is this something that you saw yourself doing when you were a player? Did you see yourself doing this at all?
No. So when I came to college, I knew I wanted to teach and coach. I've always wanted to teach and coach since I was a young person. Yeah. It's literally the only thing I wanted to do. And so I remember telling my academic advisor, I'm going to graduate in 3 years. I'm going to graduate in 4 years. I'm going to be a teacher and I'm going to be a coach. And that was it because I had no intention of going pro.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
Okay.
And, but my desire to be the best that I could be, overtake me, I guess I should say. And I became really good and got drafted. So that threw a wrench in my coaching and teaching in high school days. And so I didn't think that I was ever going to be a player development personnel. In fact, there wasn't this option, back then. So when this opportunity came about, it worked out for my family and I because we all know that college's athletics is pretty crucial in terms of how much you travel and the time spent away. Yes. My husband and I spoke about it and we had to decipher, all right, how much time are you willing? Because we do at this point we had a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, right? And so we had to really think about how much time do I really want to spend away from them? So this role at that time worked really well for my family and I, and so that's a big reason why I was able to take this role.
That's awesome. Yeah. I feel like you think so much about just our head coach of like Coach Mack, and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, he's traveling, he's doing this, and I'm like, he has a family. Yes. You know, as much time that I want off and we complain about, he wants time off as well to
That's right.
be a dad, be a husband, and it truly is like working for athletics. Your entire family is involved.
Of course, and it's a year-round job as well. I told a friend of mine, I was like, yeah, basketball is all year. It doesn't. You do not have a time off to where you can just be like, oh yeah, this is off season, because obviously the summer is recruiting, and then you go back in the fall and you start practice, and it's springtime, you're still playing, and then you go back in the summer, hey, it's recruiting again. So it is all year round, and so your family have to be on board. Or else, things are going to fall apart. And that was very big for me. In fact, when I retired from the league, I had a few options to go coach in college. Wow. And again, started counting those costs. And I was like, my husband and I were trying to start a family at that point. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, right? Yeah. Because I heard so many not so great stories, and so I didn't obviously take those opportunities, but when this one came about, it worked out well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how was your time at Baylor? You came in from St. Vincent, correct? So how did you get here? What was like that journey, the process? Tell us about that.
Well, yes, I was an international student, but I spent 3 years in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Yes.
So I went to high school there. How I got to Baylor was one of the assistant coaches at Baylor. Her dad and I worked together. And like, he was my personal coach, I should say.
Awesome.
So he was my trainer, and he told her about me to try to get Coach Mulkey to come see me play. That took a lot of convincing at one point, and but she finally came and offered me a scholarship right on the spot. So that's literally how I got to Baylor, because of a relationship and because of a connection.
Okay.
And I absolutely loved my time here. I loved it so much. I told my husband, I was like, yeah, all kids are going to Baylor. This is before I came back here, and so now they're really going, right?
Yes. Yes.
I enjoyed it so much that I felt like this was a place that I would love to send my children, and that speaks a lot about the athletic department. For sure. And not only that, but I love what Baylor itself stands for, in the academic sense, and professors were phenomenal to me. I had the best experience here. So yeah, loved it.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm 6th generation, so I feel like I could talk about Baylor for
ever.
But I think it's so true of saying, because my dad played golf, and so to have the confidence of being able to send your kids here to go through the athletic program, I think speaks volumes to Baylor and how it's year after year, like, we just keep getting better.
Yeah,
and better.
Yeah, and it has gotten so much better because, I mean, I came from where we were practicing in the slick to now where we have our own practice gym, right, and about to build a new pavilion here. Yes. So, yes, the athletic department has grown tremendously, and that's because of all the success that has come about from it, and I'm happy to have been a part of that history, to where I can say, oh yeah, I helped start it.
Yes,
so
you
that's pretty important for me, and it's gonna be pretty exciting whenever my daughter gets older, and she's gonna be like, Mommy, what? I don't like what you play. You old. That's gonna be something. I don't know if I'm ready to look forward to hearing that. Like, okay, Mom, we heard that story, 5 times already. So as long as people keep telling them that I used to be good, then I'm okay with that.
Hey, in the practice gym, there's a big old picture of you, and I'm like, yeah, she's on staff now. So
yeah.
I love that. My dad gets so upset. He's like, are you kidding me? If I had these resources when I was here, I'm like,
I know. I literally just told my husband that we were having a conversation about that last night, and I just thought, like, if I had the opportunity to have my own practice gym, would I? And I said, would I have been much better than I was? But we had to settle for the slick, and but it doesn't matter now,
it
right?
Still worked,
it worked out. It worked out well.
That's awesome. So did you start your own basketball program in San Antonio? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I had an AAU program called
Okay.
Sophia Young Elite,
Okay.
and a friend of mine and I started that when I
Okay.
was playing, and that was the purpose of that was to just get more young kids exposed to high caliber high school athletics, because obviously with AAU you want to compete with the best. You will be on the same team with the players that you're playing against all season long, and then now you get to play with them, to go and compete against other kids who are just as good as you, and obviously the goal with that also is to travel,
Okay.
so that way you can get exposure and hopefully get a scholarship to a D1 or some sort of top school. So that was something that my friend, he's the one who came to me and said, hey, we should start this, and so it worked out really well for us. Whenever I came to college, obviously you can't really do that anymore.
Right, yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot. And the NCAA does not allow you to have a high school team while you're coaching in college.
Right, something like that.
Yeah.
Rules.
Yeah. So, but it worked out. I had a tremendous time just working with the young kids in San Antonio, and watch some of them go off, and they're graduating now.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am getting old.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Such
so
a
it's
cool
good.
way that you got to be able to like pour back into San Antonio too after playing the league there and staying, and like you said, you get to see these kids graduate now
Yeah,
and
yeah.
be a part of that.
Yeah,
So that's such a cool
yeah.
opportunity.
It was awesome. Awesome.
Your time in the WNBA, 4th overall selection. I mean, that is just so cool. Walk us through kind of like, you're a college student now going to WNBA. Like that's a big step. You have money, going to a different city. Tell us all about that.
Okay. So, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't come to college with the intention to go pro.
Right.
College worked out really well for me.
Yes.
To where I took advantage of the opportunities to stay back and work harder. For me, I've always wanted, I always felt like I wasn't good enough. Right.
Okay.
And as an athlete. So that was a motivator for me to keep working, because I always felt that there was something more that I could be doing, and I could get better at a particular skill.
Yeah.
Right. And that is what got me to the league, because of that desire to be better. Yeah. So whenever we won the championship, in 2005, and all of a sudden people are like, hey, you can make it to the league. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, great, And so those are when that, it was during that time that those ideas started coming about. Like, okay, you good enough to make the WNBA. And I was just like, okay, well, maybe I should start watching the WNBA now,
That's awesome.
But the mock draft was scheduled to where I was going to be drafted 3, like the 3rd overall pick. And it was maybe the moment that Charlotte's thing was supposed to go up and announce my name, they switched their decision. And I was left to be 4. What's interesting about that is Russell Bookbinder was the general manager for the San Antonio Stars team that was there. Russell Bookbinder is the son-in-law for Grant Taft.
Wow.
here at Baylor. So immediately after he saw that I was there, he was like, get her, I want her now. And it was such a blessing. It was such a tremendous blessing going to San Antonio for me. And what's unique, and every time you hear my story, you'll see God in the way that he maneuvered everything and worked everything out, because 2 years later, the Charlotte's thing folded their franchise, and everybody was dispersed and to go to different teams. And I was fortunate to stay all 10 years in San Antonio with just one team. And the people that I met there, the environment, my teammates. You talked about coming from college and going pro. One of the biggest lessons that I had to learn was finding the right veteran to be your mentor. Yeah. Because I think that, yes, you do have money now, right? And you have more money than you've ever had before. And now you're like, okay, how do I spend this, right? So finding the right agent who told me, hey, you don't have to worry about saving right away, right? Because you are going to spend your money, right? But you have to be mindful that you have the right people to guide you in a way that's going to benefit you 10 years later. So we had some amazing veterans on my team. And for me, I kind of always wanted, remember that desire to be better?
Yes.
So I'm always like, okay, who is the best player on this team? And not just best as in skill, but best as in how do they take care of themselves? How do they take care of their body? Do I want to be seen in public with this person? So all these thoughts is what was going through my mind. And I had some tremendous veteran, Becky Hammond, Helen Darling, Vicki Johnson, Ruth Riley, and they were such great guides for me. And I think that's what helped me to be successful in the pro. And it was about, hey, you have a game tonight, you have another game tomorrow, you cannot go out tonight, right? Or you have a game in 2 days, you cannot go out. You got to make sure you get home. You got to get on a plane at 4 a.m. You got to go home and take a quick nap, and you got to get ready to go again. So these veterans are the ones who helped guide me through that instance. And they're like, hey, the WNBA is paying for you to go back to school. You need to go back to school. So those little moments, those little insights changed my life in terms of how successful I was able to be. And so because of that, I was able to get like 2 master's degrees from the WNBA, because Helen Darling in particular, she's like, you are going to get a degree while you're here. And so just being able to take advantage of those, and the people and the relationships, I think that's such a big part of my success. It was the people. It was ultimately the people who guide me. And I had such great veterans that when they were going out, they would say, hey, so this is not for you. You shouldn't come.
Yeah.
And I think that takes people who truly care about you to know that this is not who you are. Because my teammates knew what I stood for. They knew my morals. They knew what I would like and wouldn't like. And so when they were going to do something that they thought that I wouldn't like, they didn't invite me. Wow. And I was okay with that, So I've been super blessed in that sense. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, you said so many great things, but I feel like talking just about like you're now in the WNBA, NBA, you see all these one and done girls, guys go, and it's almost terrifying because I'm like, you're 18, 19 trying to figure out life, and now you're expected to do all these things. It can be so overwhelming. And so I think it's so crucial to find the correct leaders. I love that, because even in like our own program, it's like this one girl may not work well with me, and so I have to figure out who is going to work well.
Absolutely.
And guide me and know my heart, know my morals. I hate this saying, but it's very cliche, the most Baylor saying ever, but like guarding your heart,
it is
like
true.
You truly have to do that, because at the end of the day, like there are so many bad things out there, but you don't want to feel, especially in college, you don't want to feel left out. And so trying to learn the balance and figuring out what's going to work for you, and having the right teammates in your life.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
Absolutely. And, you live with you. You live in your own mind. And when the lights are off, right, it's just you.
Yeah.
And so you have to live with the decisions that you make, right? Yeah. And so you have to guard to make sure that you are choosing, because it is a choice. Yeah. Yes, we want to fit in a lot of the times, and we feel left out many times. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's a decision that, okay, can I live with this? Yeah. Because you're going to have to live with it. So it is important to make sure you surround yourself with the right people. That's cliche too. Yeah. People have been saying that for like forever. You're like, no, it doesn't matter. Yes, that is extremely important for your success.
Wow. Yeah. So many good things. Okay, so this past month was Black History Month, and Baylor Athletics got to celebrate you and everything that you've done for Baylor. How do you feel like that impacted your journey as an athlete and now as a coach?
To be celebrated as a... Yeah. I think Baylor itself has come such a long way in its integration, and particularly in its staff members. When I was a student athlete here, most of the athletes were Black. not necessarily the staff.
Okay.
Right? So I think that Baylor, and I got to give credit to Mac for his desire and his intentionality to hire a diverse faculty, a diverse staff in the athletic department, and Baylor itself in general. With Dr. Livingstone and what she is doing for the history of Baylor, right? So I think that now you can see the effects of all the sacrifice that the African American athletes have done in the past, and now are being promoted in a way that's like extremely positive, and given, and Baylor is doing that. So I think that says a lot about Baylor, and bringing athletes back to come and work for your program. That says a lot about Baylor as well. So I am tremendously blessed to have been here once again, and again, like I said earlier, I love what Baylor stand for, and the fact that they're really pushing to be inclusive in the way that they're opening up their arms and saying, hey, the way that things have been done in the past, it's not really working out that way anymore, and we have to be okay to be willing to change. And I think that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's so awesome to see where Baylor was and to see now where we are, and just like the change that we've made has been so incredible. And you play against these other programs, and like they're so diverse, and so you want to look at our own and be like, okay, what can we do we want to be the best of everything, so like let's be the best in that area now.
Absolutely.
And to make that change. And I personally love when seeing like old athletes come back on staff, because I just think it shows like Tweety Carter, Walter Abercrombie, like it just really shows that like they care and like they want to be a part still of that change. And so it's awesome.
that's the people that Mac hires, you know, and that's Mac in itself, and just kind of getting to talk to him, and you can see his heart and what he really wants the athletic program to look like. So you gotta give him a lot of credit. Yeah.
It's awesome. Love it. So you do a lot of player development. That's your job. What is the one thing that you wish you could have changed about your journey as a player, now that you've kind of walked through all of this and are getting to pour back into girls that are quite literally walking in the shoes that you once did?
Yeah, it's pretty funny, because I tell them, I'm like, hey, there's nothing you can say to me that I haven't experienced. I'm literally walking in your shoes, in the same school, same basketball. What is one thing that I would change? I wish I had me.
Yeah.
I wish I had a player development person, because I'm a person that I like taking advice.
Okay.
You know, like I'm like, hey, tell me, feed me, almost like feed me. Tell me which path to take. Because I don't like to learn necessarily from other people's. Like if somebody failed, like I'm not gonna fail just like you failed, because if you told me you failed there, I'm literally not gonna go that path, right? Some people like to do that. Like my son, I'm like, hey. Probably shouldn't do that, but we like to learn from experience. And I'm like, no, you can just tell me and I'll learn, right? So I think that if I had someone in this role who have gone on in the future and say, hey, these are some steps that you can take, you know, making sure that you probably take a little bit more advantage of my opportunities while I was in college, but ultimately life happens the way it does, and you know, now I'm back, so I want to make sure that I am intentional about guiding, right? And the interesting thing about young people is that you don't always take advice. So, and sometimes whenever you talk, sometimes I feel like I go home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I spoke so much today. Like I feel like I have no more words to say. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if they actually heard anything I say. You know, did anything stick? You know, so that's the catch that I go home and grapple with every day. It's like, did anything that I say stick? Am I making a difference? You know, am I making an impact? Yeah. So that's awesome. that's the challenge.
Yeah, and it is hard, and I feel like there's so many different things of like, we have this person help with this and this person help with this and this person help with this. And so I know like sometimes I'm like, like, just hold on a second, let me try to figure it out. And I feel like I'm kind of built the same way of like, I don't want to fail. Like, tell me what you did wrong and I'm not going to do that. So
Correct.
I think it is so helpful to have people like you and just be able to pour into us. And it helps too of like, you literally were at Baylor. Like, you know where everything is, you know the culture, you know the standards. So I think it, you are making an impact, and I'm sure those girls are hanging on. But trust me, I know sometimes even my own teammates, I'm like, girl, did you hear what I said?
Did you just hear it?
Like, come on, let's get with it.
Yeah.
But that's
so awesome. I try to, whenever I give advice, I try not to give too much advice.
Okay. Yeah.
But whenever I do, I try to do it in a question form.
Okay.
You know, like I ask a question like, you know, hey, Sophia, what do you want? What do you think about this? I'm like, well, what do you think? Like, if you can see yourself in 5 years,
it's more of like
this decision,
like a self-reflection.
Correct.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Nice.
Because then it's you, right?
Yeah, you get to answer it.
It's your decision and it's your life that you have to. You live with you. You live in your own head, so you have to be okay with making decisions when I'm not around. You know, so I don't want to always. I do give advice, but I try not to give as much, right? But I try to guide more so than, this is what I think.
Yeah, like, oh, I came up with this. Oh, I'm so smart.
Oh, my gosh. Like, oh, my God, I'm going to change your life. No.
That's awesome. So how was the transition from being a player and coach back at your own program? Was that different just because you kind of had known the standards of, like, Kim Mulkey, and then to have a new head coach in the same program? Like, how was that transition?
Well, I think Coach Nikki and Coach Mulkey are two different coaches. Yeah. Like, completely. Sure. They're very opposite. And I'm sure everybody in this world can tell that. Yes. By now. So I played for a coach who was just very spunky and just very like get up in your face type of coach. And I enjoyed it. I absolutely loved playing for Coach Mulkey, and I liked her fire, you know, that she would coach with, and I had a fantastic time here. Coach Nikki is a different coach in that she is more like easygoing, you know, and she's not gonna create that much of a scene, right. You know, like I think coming back, you see what you started. Okay. And, you know, the progression. And Coach Mulkey did a fantastic job at Baylor with the way that she created and made a name for Baylor with women's basketball. Yeah. You know, and so because you're a part of that, you want to keep that legacy going. For sure. You want Baylor to continue to be in that top caliber women's basketball program. And so I want to help continue to do that. That's just the bottom line of it. I know what it took. I know what it takes, you know, and I want to help to push our athletes to be the best that they can be, right? Because there's always something more that you can give, right? I'm so tired. I'm like, no, you can probably give a little bit more. You got it. Right, yeah. And then when I can say, I'm talking to you from, you know, I'm not like coming from a random school. I came from right here. So I know that that this university and being a part of it can change your life. You know, if you give it your all, it will give you its all. Yeah. And so being back here, I want to do that. I want to continue the legacy of what this program has been and the excellence of what it's been. You know, with women's basketball for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's so reassuring, like as an athlete too, to be able to get advice from somebody that has walked through that, but also like wants to continue to be better. I think it's so important of just like Nicole, our director of operations, like she walked through it. She knows what it takes. And so when we do get advice from her, it's kind of like, okay, like she is wanting to give the best advice because she also kind of has an investment in it. She's like, I got some skin in the game still, you know, like I still want us to be good. I want to see Baylor volleyball or Baylor basketball be good forever. Right. So it's, I just think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, you know what it took. You know, when I played at Baylor Baylor volleyball wasn't that great.
Yeah.
So to come back now and to see that you made a Final Four and, you
Yeah.
make an NCAA tournament, which we didn't back then. And so all the work that they put in. So when a player like Nicole came, because she was a part of the Final Four team, yes? And so she can see, like, hey, I know what it takes to get to this point, and it's important because we are people who want to see the program continue to grow, right? Sure. Because, I mean, like I said, I want my daughter to go here.
Yeah. You want it to be good?
Of course, of course. Yeah. Yes, I want it to be good for the next 20, 30 years, for sure, because I want her to be proud to represent Baylor. And, and obviously for that to happen, you have to continue with its excellence. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's always so fun when Nicole's at practice and she'll like be doing the scoreboard and he's like, Nicole, get over here. I need you to show them something. I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. She's like, yeah, come on. I'm like, it kind of stings a little too because I'm like, shoot, like Nicole used to do this and like she knows the standards, so like I gotta own up to it and like we gotta continue to hold it. So it's definitely fun to see that transfer because I was here when she wasn't here and then now she's here, and so for her to kind of say stuff, she's like, oh yeah, I remember that, and it works, so do it. I'm like, okay, thanks, Nicole. Appreciate
thank you.
Love you. So that is awesome. So you also had the opportunity to play overseas outside of the WNBA. Was that always the plan? Did you want to do that? Did you feel any like more benefits to playing overseas versus the WNBA, or?
That was the plan because that's what everybody did.
Okay.
The WNBA is only in the summer, basically. So you go from May to about September, October, and then you have the rest of the months to figure out so you get a regular job or you go overseas to where you can, play and sustain a lifestyle that you would like to have. And so that was like the normal thing. I played in Istanbul, Turkey for 3 years and absolutely loved it. Okay. Oh my gosh, I loved it. It became like my second home there, with the way that the organization took care of me, and we won a Euro championship while we were there as well. So again, when you're winning, you get a lot of winning is really fun. You get a lot of perks when you win, and I absolutely loved it. I played my final season overseas in China. Okay. Yeah, Beijing, China, and that was also fun. That was where I did get injured, though. But God is supreme in the way that He works things out for our good, even the bad things, right? It was in China where I tore my ACL. Okay. But coming back from going to China, I wanted to play in China because their season was shorter. And I thought, okay, well, I'll go there and I'll play for a few months and then I'll come back. I'll get to relax for a little bit. I'll travel, right before the WNBA starts. We create our own plans, right? But then I got hurt there. But during that recovery time and rehab and therapy is when I met my husband. Because I had to sit still. Literally had to sit still. I had to be in San Antonio to do rehab. And that was not my plan. That was not my plan. But God works all things out for our good. So my final season overseas was in China. And it was in that time that I met my husband. So, yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So we've been together for 10 years now. Okay. Yeah. So.
That's
God is good.
Yeah, seriously. No, I feel like I tore my ACL my junior year of high school, and it was in that time that you just realize so much about yourself, realize so many different things of like, okay, I truly am not in control. Right. I don't have a plan. Right. It's not in my hands. So that's awesome. And together for 10 years. Like, perfect.
Yeah. I was like, this is the longest relationship I've ever had in my life.
I love that. That's awesome. So fun. So just being able to, I always love, it's going to be really sad whenever basketball does leave the Farrell Center, just because I love being able to see other athletes and interact, and it's always fun to just kind of catch up, but just being able to like see you walk through the weight room, like you can just tell that you just carry yourself with just so much faith and joy and Christ-like character, and so it definitely rubs off on us. But how do you feel like being a woman of faith transferred over into your sport? And you just kind of spoke on it a little bit, but would you mind sharing some of your testimony?
Yeah. So there's this thing about, like, it's almost like athletics is separated from faith.
Yeah.
Right? Like you the person who you are as a Christian is different from who you are as an athlete. But for me, that was always one and the same.
Okay.
Right? I came to the U.S. I got baptized at age 15 years old. I surrendered my life to Christ at then.
Awesome.
I grew up in the church, knew who God was my whole entire life. You know, sports was always a part of us. Like, so that in itself, being a Christian and working in sports was always one. There was never a separation for me. When I came to the U.S., went to a private Christian school. You know, so my faith grew there. Okay. When the opportunity to come to Baylor came about, I thought a Christian school again, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, that meant that I can grow my faith and play basketball.
Right.
But it wasn't like a separation of I'm not gonna be one way on the court and then another way on off the court. There was challenges, obviously, being an athlete, especially in the pro level, right?
Sure.
Of you know, standing in your faith. The great thing about Baylor is that I could be one and the same.
Yeah.
You know,
it's very comfortable.
But that doesn't mean that every one of your teammates agree with what you stand for. So I had to those are the moments when it tests your faith and tests who you are to see if are you really going to be true in a moment when you're so frustrated, right? In a moment when you have a choice and your teammates are like, hey, do this, and you're like, it's pulling on me, right?
Yeah.
To fit in, like you said
before,
and to want to be liked, right? But it's interesting because when you are secure in yourself and secure in your faith, to where you're not it's called a hypocrite, really,
right?
To people,
your
teammates do respect you eventually because they can see that you are one and the same. So I think I remember my freshman year just kind of struggling with that, you know, coming in, being, going from a Christian high school. And, usually when in high school, you're like, yes, I'm on fire for God. Yes, this is awesome. I'm never going to lose my faith. And then you get to college and you're like, oh, things going to be a little bit more challenging, especially when you're on your own. And so I remember my freshman year just kind of like trying to figure out, like, am I really gonna stand for this? Like when the test came, and it was some really one-on-one moments when me and God just had to be isolated, and just trying to figure out, like, who am I, right?
Right.
Can I do this together? Can I be one and the same? And so we had to come to terms. I say God and I had to come to terms like, this is who I'm going to be, because actually was looking back in my journal a few weeks ago, and I wrote back when I was in high school, and I said, those people that stands on a platform and talk about how God is important to them. I want to be one of those people.
Wow.
With my faith and my sport. And I look back at that and I'm just like, I didn't remember that I wrote that. Right. So when I saw that, it just meant like that's always been my goal.
Plan,
right. That's always been my plan, my intention. So whenever we did have the opportunity and we won the national championship, and they say, well, who do you give credit to? For me, it's been, glory to God. Yeah. And it's a cliche that people say that, but for me, that meant everything. It was who I always was. And so little things like encouraging your teammates, not using foul language, whenever things are just going so bad, and you just feel like, oh my gosh, I can't stand this. I want to quit. Just being able to show wanting the same person, and because obviously people looking at you, it said that you may be the only Christ that people see, right? And so if that is the case, then you can't be two people.
Yeah.
because then that throws somebody else off their faith.
It's a heavy position to hold.
Yeah.
You know, like you feel like there's all this pressure of, especially I think it's so good of like, come to Baylor, Christian school, like I think everything's so great, and like truly you have teammates that don't have the faith at all. And so it can be really hard to, okay, I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to be so disciplined about this and what I say and how I act so I can lead them towards Christ. And I've definitely had parts where I'm like, okay, like I did slip up, and so like let me go apologize and be like, hey, if I did this and it showed any act of like not being faithful, then like I'm sorry, because that's not who he is, and he's calling me to be better. And so it's definitely tough. I think one of my favorite stories is when Jared Butler won the national championship. He's like so excited, confetti's falling, and he's like, this is it, you know, like, and that just really hit me. He shared that at FCA, and I was like, whew, like it truly, it means nothing at the end of the day. And so it's who you get to give credit to and get to use that platform is, it's crucial. But that's always kind of stuck with me, because I'm like, wow, like even at the highest of moments, it still is truly going to be compared to like nothing of eternal life. So
absolutely. And I mean, like that story is pretty impactful, because again, you are in college for 4 years, right? And then you won a championship in that point, and then you just like, oh, okay, you know, this is this it? I worked so hard, and then you're expecting this like high, and then you're like, okay. At the end of the day, you got to live with you, right? And you got to put your head at night, and then you, when you're laying down, and God's like, hey, did you give me credit? You have to live with you to say like, was I a good representation of you today?
Yeah,
you know. And so those moments are hard, and it can help you stay on track as in your faith. And I was fortunate enough to where my teammates kind of knew who I was.
Yeah.
In my faith. And again, that's one of the things being in the pro level, when my veterans are like, oh, I don't think this is your scene. You probably shouldn't come, right? So just being able to stand firm in that sense. Yeah.
So cool. I love it. So I always put questions up on the forum whenever I have somebody come in for an interview. And Yodis asked, how has the collegiate game changed since you left, and what do you think of Baylor women's basketball's future?
Well, all the post players are like big guards now. It's not necessarily like anybody who are like true post players, you know. The game is different in terms of, you have a lot of people who are just, you know, a lot of big guards who are shooting a lot from the outside and much more skilled, you know. So I think that the game is more skilled now. It's more finesse, and there was always this thing about, you know, women's basketball being not as feminine, right? And then now I feel like the game is very feminine, you know, and the girls are playing hard, and they're looking beautiful with their eyelashes and makeup fully done. We love to see that, right? We love to see that that the girls are just playing, and they're girls, and they're very girly when they're done, but they come out and they just dive on the floor for loose balls, you know. So I love the work ethic that some people are putting in to make themselves to be the best, and how skilled they are, and how much their desire is to want to succeed. I think for Baylor's future, I feel that Baylor's future is bright. You know, I think Coach Nikki has some good plans for what she wants to do with the program, and we know that following a person like Coach Mulkey was going to be challenging.
For sure.
And so we love and appreciate the grace that everybody has that people have given to Coach Nikki as she navigates this time. But I think that the future is really bright for Baylor women's basketball. It's not something that's going to go away for a moment. You know, I think that it's going to take a lot of hard work, just like it took hard work for Kim Mulkey to start up the program. I think it's going to take that much and even more, because the game is so competitive now, and you know, the game is different because of NIL as well. You know, and the game. Let me take that back. The game itself is not different. The game of NIL,
Yeah.
has made you the college athletic recruiting process more challenging. And so with that, that means that, when the players do come, that the work ethic and excellence is going to be even more of something that we really got to hone in on, to keep that level of excellence. But I think the future is bright, for sure.
That's awesome. I forget that NIL is even a thing because it truly doesn't impact our sport as much, but it truly does on y'all's side from a recruiting standpoint. And everyone wants to talk about it, and it's the big thing right now, but I hate how I feel like it's going to take away from some of the, grit, hard work, fight to be. And I'm like, ugh, it's supposed to be basketball. Come on. It's not supposed to be about all this other stuff. But, just kind of the world we're in today.
Yeah. It's a tough battle to fight, and I think people are trying to figure it out, and navigate that with even the NCAA are trying to wheel in some, some of the strings on that one because it could get under control.
Yeah, for sure. Brian Etheridge asked, could you describe some differences between the styles of your former coach and Nikki? You kind of spoke on it a little bit earlier, but anything else that really sticks out?
Well, just being on the sideline, right? Coach Bucky had her own show.
Yeah,
she literally had her own show on the sideline, and obviously that's not Nikki. So that's a huge difference, for people coming to watch the game. Coach Mulkey was, like I mentioned earlier, just get up in your face type of, I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
Not so much because coaching is a little bit different. She's just a matter of I enjoyed playing for Kim because she gave me freedom to play. Coach Nikki does the same thing. Okay. She gives the girls a lot of freedom to play, and I think one of the a difference as well, especially this year, is Coach Mulkey was a lot of posts. She brought a lot of big post players, and you see a lot of game that went on the inside. I think this year we had a lot more guard shooting. Okay. So that was a huge, a big change as well. But I don't think that's going to be that way for a while.
Yeah. Awesome. Good. And then for our last question, I ask everybody this when they come on. If you could write a letter to sports, saying anything you would want to, what would you say and why?
I would say, dear sports, because of you, my life, my family's life, my journey, the opportunities, the doors that will open, I give you all that credit. You have completely changed my life. You have changed the trajectory of my life. And I will forever be grateful to you. And it's not over. Our journey is still going on.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you, and this has been so fun.
Yay, I'm excited to be here. This was great. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, anytime. Thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Sophia had so many great things to say. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe on YouTube, and then follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for everything Dear Sports. Until next time, this is Faith Lynch with Dear Sports.